Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to this Steve Beeman Group monthly webinar. We are very pleased to have you with us tonight. We've got a great show tonight with Mr. Geoff Tanham, a good friend. I'll get a great introduction to him to you in just a moment. I want to just provide a little bit of housekeeping. As always on these webinars, we have muted everyone's microphones except mine and Geoff to keep Geoff on track and me on time. So if you have questions, in the toolbar you have, I believe you have a chat box. You can send me questions or raise your hand, whichever is more appropriate, and we'll make sure to get those questions answered. This is a terrific privilege to have this with you. As you know, the Steve Beeman Group is on a mission with two different facets. Number one is to provide the tools and resources small businesses need to excel in this challenging time. And number two is to help change the dialogue in this nation to become more pro-business, pro-growth, and pro-profit. So it's those two missions we're on. And tonight's webinar is part of that first, to provide you, the small business community, with new insights and information. So we are so pleased, in conjunction with the decision to buy, to present you with Selling is Everything, the art of integrating people, process, and tools. Geoff, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the introduction. Tonight what I'd like to cover is the integration of people, process, and tools, which is more of an art form than just utilizing those resources. Selling is Everything is based on achieving success. So as you can see in this slide, success is predicated on any number of different things: analysis, solution, process, objectives, teamwork, that's the critical thing, vision, and of course, sales. What I'd like to do is set a benchmark of kind of where companies are, how they evolve, and why it's important to build these processes and be able to have good process, repeatable process, good salespeople, and good tools. Well, what I'm trying to say is all of these are components to be able to reach success. We all are looking for success. We all see success in different ways. So our objectives or our goals may be different, or how we go about them, but we all have them. So in order to get there, we have to learn new processes or new tools or new habits in order to be successful. And in order to do that, you have to focus on any number of different issues that are going to get you there. So if we go to the next slide, which is the life cycle of business. So if you look at the maturity level, and I think what's important to understand is maturity is like your kids. We don't all come about it at the same time. So though we may have these maturity levels, it's the critical criteria of what those characteristics are is what we're trying to get through as we become mature as a company. So when the companies start, or they're working in their youngest phase, they have a tendency to have ad hoc processes, inconsistent outcomes, rework, and a lot of times not very profitable. What we want to get to is a maturity level over 5, which is the innovating level. But for our purposes, today's discussion is really getting into planned innovations, change management, capable processes that are repeatable and are based on continuous improvement. Because most companies that I've worked with, though they have all the right intentions, in many cases, some of the habits that were built into the culture of the company when they started are inhibiting them from moving forward from the basis that they've reached with those habits. So what we're looking to try to do is, 1, integrate change, 2, integrate change for growth of the company, and 3, to grow the culture from a startup, rework, everything is new mentality to a consistent process, tool, and customer-focused approach. That allows you to build a culture where we all sell, okay?
Absolutely, and we're looking at the chain that you've got here, and as we've experienced, Geoff, in our time working together, it's the weakest link in the chain that affects businesses. So what you're talking about is, of course, getting everybody on the same page so there are no weak links.
Exactly. And so the strength of everything works together. So as you'll see on the next slide, most organizations, though they may try to interact aren't pulling their own weight, don't have great strength, and don't have great continuity. So if the chain is just docile, the end result isn't what you want it to be at the end of the day. So you might as well be at the beach just selling hats. Though we may have people that sell hats at the beach.
To get there, but I have a feeling if we don't follow these kinds of processes, we never get there to begin with.
That's correct. So because we're going to talk about people, process, and tools, I've given us a few definitions here so that we can define and have benchmarks, so when I discuss these, we're talking about the same things. People are management, they're your salespeople, they're your marketing people, they're your employees, your customers, and your prospects. Your processes are what I call key performance indicators, which are KPIs. And a KPI is a whole other discussion, so I'm not going to get in infinite detail on that. But in essence, what KPIs are the best habits that are repeatable to cause the best event. So those become, in sales, key performance indices. Some people would say, well, only quota is a key performance indices. It's part of it. But the actions that successful people take, no matter what job they have, are the key performance indicators for success. Because those most successful people have learned through experiential knowledge, or learning from other people, or mentoring, or reading, how to change their habits to be more successful as they do things, in particular those with repeatable functions. The other processes are important, obviously, are order entry, deliver, financial, compliance, HR, so forth and so on. Those are all fundamental backroom functions. They need to work properly, but what we're going to focus more on is the sales side of it. The tools are things like CRM, Customer Resource Management, or contact software. This is the type of software that most people have in one form or another. Salesforce, ACT, Infusionsoft. There's a whole wealth of those types of software out there that people use. Traditionally, they were used as a reminder system, like I have an appointment on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, I put it in my documents so I don't overbook, and those sort of things. When my follow-up is from a proposal or a conversation, that's how it's been used in the past. Nowadays, most of the CRMs, unfortunately, are being used as a management tool, not as a functional sales tool. This causes the sales team not to be able to use the tool because they don't see value in it. My key emphasis here is, whenever you're dealing with anybody within your company, in particular salespeople, if you don't drive value to what they're doing, either the process is worthless or the tool is not functional for them. And many organizations that I've worked in, the management side of the business has controlled the CRM tool so much to the point for their reporting that the salespeople don't use it functionally anymore. This then makes the tool dysfunctional for even management because the data isn't accurate, up to speed, or based on KPIs. So I have a real challenge for all of you out there today to make sure that the tools that you use absolutely do what you want them to do, and that they provide value to the people that use them. All right. So people is constituted customers and clients, who they are, which is you have to identify the profile of who they are. And the most important thing for any business owner is to go out and talk to their customers to understand why they do business with them. I know it sounds remedial, but in most cases you will find in having a discussion with your client that they buy from you for different reasons than you may think, or your salespeople may tell you. So it's critical. Leadership, as your guest speaker spoke to last month, leadership is a very critical component of driving a company. They provide the vision, the goals, and they help manifest and support positive growth cultures. The management team then shares the goals to a tactical implementation. So that is to say, if we know what our profit is this year, the senior management builds a plan to execute to that, and the other management team then moves to execute to those tactical goals. Any plan that is less than 3 years is a tactical plan. If we keep that in mind,
Geoff, let me ask you a question. Why do you set 3 years on that?
One of the reasons that I set 3 years is because there's a confusion in an understanding between a strategic goal and tactical goals. Strategic goals are long-term visions to accomplish over a long period of time. They may take any number of tactical goals in order to accomplish that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You bet. So my point of the people is that the people is a hierarchical structure that drives down the goals, the vision, and the culture through the rest of the teams. Your employees have to be able to embrace that. And one of the challenges of any organization is to be able to understand that your employees are your greatest asset, as important as your customers. The better your people do what they're supposed to do or how they're supposed to do it, bring innovation, but continuously improve and interact with other members of the team and the company, the better your company is going to be. That goes back to what success is in the first slide when we talk about teamwork. Processes
often overlooked in American business today.
You know, it's interesting, it is, but we all have families, and we know that how the family works as a team there too. So I think we overlook the term team, but we may functionally actually be acting like we have one. So I don't believe it's quite as bad as some people may profess it to be. Processes are built for a reason of communication, accountability, rules, workflow for any number of different functions. The tools, again, are the CRMs and the other tools that allow repeatability. So a contract would be a tool. A order form would be a tool. A report type of form or any type of feedback would be a tool. Because we want everyone to be able to use it, and it should be a repeatable tool.
We're with you. We can see that clearly. And these are important distinctions. As you mentioned, last month we had Rick Lochner on talking about leadership. But when you bring it all together through the leadership, the management, the sales, and employees, processes, and tools, it drives a business or an enterprise of any sort to a greater success.
So the art of it is being able to take these functional skills and connect the dots where they're applicable and where they need improvement, or where they're not applicable. So part of the art is having enlightened management. And I use the analogy of how we think for enlightened management. When a situation is presented to us, our brain automatically works to either associate it to something or try to solve the problem. In most cases, we judge it as either an opportunity or a problem. Enlightened management looks at everything as an opportunity, nothing as a problem. Because the vast majority of problems that we have are predicated on communication, process, or lack of tools. Enlightened management understands 95% of the population wants to be led. 4% of that 5% leadership knows when to be quiet and be led as well. So in order to get to the art, the right message is communicated to everyone. Here's our culture, here's how we execute, here are our objectives, here are our goals, and by the way, our mantra is always, do the right thing. The right people doing the right job. If you don't have the right people doing the right job, that job's not going to get done properly. In certain cases, the process that they utilize may not allow them to do that. Enlightened management looks at all those components. The marketing matches the selling. I can't tell you how many companies I've worked with over the years who were marketing one thing but could never deliver it and were selling something else. So it's that teamwork again to be able to integrate. The target audience is the best profile. And that is to say, if you don't have a very clear profile of your best customer, what they do, how they do it, and what you do for them, go out and do it. Because that's the people you want. You want their cousins and friends. Process facilitates cost-effective execution and repeatability, giving you greater profit. Tools CRM, we've covered. Customer satisfaction is critical. Enlightened management, and the art is to be able to understand continuous improvement means giving up bad habits or looking in the mirror and saying, maybe I made a mistake, I need to fix that.
You know, Geoff, that idea of continuous improvement is something all of us need to take to heart. There is within many of the small businesses I work with almost an arrogance that sets in with, we've always done it this way. And I think as we deal in a more competitive, more critical environment economically, folks need to understand that we need constantly to be looking for improvement in all facets of our businesses, especially as we look to processes of communication. And we always need to be sensitive, and I think it's terrific that you focus in on that point of continuous improvement, Geoff, because it is certainly something that all of us need to embrace across the board. And then that ties directly to the art of integration.
Correct. If there's no connection, it's not a process, it's an action. Understand the differences. If it does not provide value, it's a cost. Figure out whether it's worth keeping or not. If it is broken, fix it or kill it. Because if it's broken, it may not be the right process or the right tool or the right approach. If it works poorly, it needs listening and learning. I'll talk about root cause analysis a little later to improve it. If it helps the customer, it's of value. Processes are for people, they are not people. So processes are working. One of two things is happening. No training for the people to learn the process, or the process isn't functional. And then I go back to continuous improvement. Must be continuous. Next. All right.
Now the blueprint's an interesting relationship, I think, to what you're talking about in these processes.
Yes. Enlightened management has a plan. So, for instance, when you ask me about strategic versus tactical, my quota for the year, or the revenue and the profit that we need, is a tactical. Strategic says, where do I want to be in 3 years? My tactical builds to that. So that's why I need a blueprint to be able to understand what my plan is.
And then the question, of course, is we have to start our plan by understanding where we are today.
Correct. So as I said a little bit earlier, the part of it is being able to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing that's repeating, like Sir Francis Bacon said, that isn't working and I keep doing it. So if I do the same thing the same way and I expect a different result, I get what I expect. Finding and fixing challenges. This comes back down to being able to understand what a root cause analysis is. And I love this term because it really says what you're after. Most of the problems that I incurred as a senior manager were people-driven. But if I only looked at them as people-driven, I didn't necessarily solve very many of them. When I look at them as a root cause analysis and say, why is this causing this? I got a better feel for what that was. Because fixing the problem that they proposed to me at that time may have solved that immediate problem, but not the underlying problem, so it's going to recur. So I believe that people have to understand what root cause analysis is in order to get to the functional point of analyzing properly. And that's a Wikipedia definition, by the way. In using root cause analysis, it's really about listening, learning from the reality, facts, and that experience. Your gut will tell you whether you're hearing the right things or not. But by doing that root cause analysis, you're going to understand your people better. You're going to understand your customers. You're going to understand your processes and your tools. You're going to understand how they match up and integrate properly and where the friction is caused and where to address the priorities that you have. Because at the end of the day, we still only have 60 or 80-hour work weeks. I laugh, but that's true of most entrepreneurs. So we have to allocate our time effectively on a priority basis. So the opportunity is fantastic. We all want to have Harrods. At the end of the day, everyone knows what Harrods is. Their food court alone has 3 million tourists. I'd say that's pretty successful.
That's a huge number of folks just coming to visit a department store.
That's just the
Clearly,
food
they've got
court.
their act together.
It's amazing. I mean, it's a destination in London. I want to be, as a business, a destination in any city. People, they are our greatest asset, but they're also our greatest challenge. The biggest challenge for us on an ongoing basis is integrating the right people so that they're doing the right job together.
You know, Geoff, this is a slide you and I could spend an entire hour talking about. It's so often, you know, you look at building something like a football team. You don't go out always and recruit the best player. What you recruit is the best person for the team. And it may be that you need a right guard. You don't want to put a quarterback in that position. And so this idea of getting the right person to do the right job is overlooked, but is absolutely central to building an organization that keeps everybody on the bus.
I agree with that. It's an interesting analogy to use because some people would say in football, well, we always go out and draft the best player. Most of those teams don't do well because they're not looking for where their weaknesses are and trying to fix those.
In fact, interestingly, there was a movie about baseball recently, and I forget the name of it, but it highlighted the fact that they began using quantitative measures to bring on baseball players. It's a true story, and it led to a World Series team because they brought on the best team, not necessarily the best players. So that can be done in business as well.
Billy Bean, the Athletics.
Let's talk leadership again. We had Rick Lochner on last month from our RPA Leadership Associates, and it's an interesting topic, again, overlooked by many businesses, but something you highlight, Geoff, here as a critical component to getting it right.
Absolutely. I have total agreement with his presentation last month. I enjoyed it immensely. And it really builds upon the concept of enlightened or the art of management. You deliver the vision as a manager, you deliver the goals, and you drive the culture. So if you can't walk the walk and talk the talk and live the life, your people won't either. So my mantra always is, always do the right thing. And that means in supporting your people internally and supporting your customers externally. Enlightened management understands that they carry the strategic thinking and the implementation and the process and the vision of how to tactically achieve it. The better they can share that, the better they can embrace it themselves, the better everyone else will. Because as leaders, you're still the model. Management team. They take the vision and the goals and they make it tactics. Not all big organizations do this very well. Some do it brilliantly. Smaller companies, sometimes there is no middle management, so to speak. So as the leaders, we also are the management team implementing the tactics. The key thing here is to understand when we deal with our people on a direct basis other than the management team, that everything is tactical. No one cares about where we are in 3 years. Salespeople don't care because they're going to be gone if they don't make their numbers in 3 years. It's great to hear at the annual meeting. It's a good vision, but the culture itself is predicated on that goal by doing tactical things and actions to make it happen. So we want to make sure that the best skills are there for everyone. Salespeople aren't individual contributors, they're actually team members, because no salesperson can be successful alone. I know that's contrary to the individual contributor model that we've had before, or that people so embrace. But the reality is, I as a salesperson can't be successful no matter whether I'm selling a product or service, or maybe nearly as successful, without my management team. without my delivery team, without my back office team, without the right people answering the phone and having the right attitude when they answer, without every touch point that the customer has in my organization, whether directly or indirectly, is positive and focused on their need. So salespeople
have both been around sales a long time. I've spent most of my life in a sales capacity one way or another, and it is, to your point, the smallest things can derail a sales effort. If a customer calls in and talks to an operator who's rude to them, well, then they're going to immediately get a bad taste in their mouth about that company. God forbid you miss a delivery or you don't handle a promise that was made. And so you're right. The salespeople don't operate in a vacuum. I think that's a vast misconception. They operate as a part of the machinery of business, and they need to be considered as part of that. They need to be brought into the loop, handled as an important part of the team, but always remember that they are a part of that team, and they don't just operate when everybody else is the great football team. They're off on their own somewhere. That just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, maybe that's why there's one kicker.
That's right, exactly. So let's talk about integration, because, again, we're touching on this with the salespeople issues, but integration really does come down to a flow chart almost of making sure everything's singing together. You know, you can't have a chorus or an orchestra that operates without a conductor, and integration becomes very important in the business sense.
Absolutely, and if you don't have integration, you don't have teamwork, and everybody has to have an ownership and a loyalty and a discipline and a focus to make it happen. So it goes back to always do the right thing, whether it's inside or outside, you want to do that. But when you integrate sales, you have to understand that as a company, you only deliver three things to your customer: quality, service, or best price. No business can give you all three and stay in business. So part of what you're going to do when you integrate or take a profile of your customer is understand which two of those three is most critical for them and that you deliver best. Because value is based on the customer need and perception, not what I think it is, or even you, Steve, or anybody else.
You know,
if you can deliver what you can be... Sorry?
Just to interject, one of the companies I owned as a part of my private equity company was a consumer products company, and I hired a really expert market research guy who taught me the important lesson that most market researchers don't understand, and that is that what you need to understand is customer preference, not your own. And a lot of CEOs of consumer companies don't recognize that. They go about thinking, this is my product, I like it, I'd like it this way, not recognizing it's all about the customer, it's not about them.
If there's no perceived value, why are they going to buy from you?
Right.
So one of the challenges that I have in working with companies is, in many cases, the founders started the company, they did everything, including sales, and when sales doesn't go the way that they had done it before, they're angry. The reality is, when they did sales, it was leveraged off of their contacts, the people that they knew, and they walked in with a credibility that already existed because they'd earned that. When their salespeople are selling to new customers, their credibility is not there. They need to earn that trust and rapport so that the customer's perception is of value, or actually is driven to value.
You know, Geoff, again, I want to salute you for your insight there. As a principal of small business, I've often been in situations where I'm out and very successfully able to sell a product or a service when an employee of mine may not have that same success because they don't carry the weight of the title and the experience. And so owners need to recognize that the salespeople they're bringing on have to be helped along a little bit. You've got to be able to give them some of that background of yours and really help build their credibility by living up to the needs and perceptions of those customers that they're building. So, again, it gets back to the team doing it, not just any single person.
Absolutely.
Now, here we go, some Geoff Tanhisms. I've always enjoyed these, and back in my days at Wharton, I remember these when, Geoff, you and I used to walk around the city of Chicago. So these are fun to listen to, but they're important for people to understand.
So they're a little tongue-in-cheek, but like all humor, there's a lot of reality here. Successful scaling is not, people are born salespeople. It's a skill learned, practiced, and failed at to be successful. But I think one of the critical points for your audience to understand is salespeople become very productive in 12 to 18 months of employment. But the average salesperson keeps a job 16.7 months. The ramifications of those are huge.
That's a serious, I hadn't realized that, Geoff. That's an interesting insight.
So if your people aren't doing well, do a root cause analysis on them before you throw out the baby with the bathwater. Because it may not be just the people. It may be what you're dealing with is you can't deliver it, your price isn't right, they're not understanding the customer need, you can't meet to that need, or you're just not embracing all the things that you need to embrace in order to have a full offering to the customer that makes them want to buy from you. This is a great sales mentor of mine once said, Geoff, sales is really a conversation with a destination. Okay.
Do we know that mentor collectively, or is it someone that you worked with?
No, I don't know. His name is Skip Savoya.
Oh, I did not know him. I was thinking you were referring to a guy named Bill Gerhardt.
No.
Just for the audience, Bill Gerhardt was the vice president that Geoff and I reported to during our time at Wharton, and he was a good friend as well, a very consummate professional with us, and it's nice to joke about old friends like that. Yeah. I digress, Geoff. So.
That's right. So the other thing is numbers don't lie, people do. You know, people can change the numbers, but the reality is if you're evaluating your sales team on numbers, stick to the numbers, don't worry about the stories. Sales is a team sport, I covered. Also remember, to every salesperson, the biggest problem is the last one they heard from a customer or prospect. I've sold for almost 40 years. And I can't tell you how many days I've heard from people complaining about things because of what happened the day before that really don't have any rationale to the business or any reason to have it be changed. So keep in mind, we all complain to a certain degree. Salespeople, though we're optimists, do it the same way. Salespeople think in solutions. They're connecting the dots. They listen and add value to the customer, even more than just a product and service. I just finished a very large engagement with a billion-dollar pharmaceutical company. I made some calls in the field. They're in the aesthetics business. One of the doctors looked at me and said, the reason I love Meg so much is because she adds so much value to my business. She understands my marketing. She understands my market. She shares ideas with me. She shared ideas that have been successful with other customers in other cities. She's always bringing me more to consider to grow my business. That's not a product. That's not a service. That's add value.
That's a powerful statement, Geoff. I mean, in and of itself, what you're saying is that it's not just about delivering the tangible things your company offers, but it's the intangible quality of caring about that customer as much as you care about your commission check.
Absolutely. And the consummate professional that understands that starts to connect the dots with the customer and looks at the totality of their business so that they're always the go-to person for that business. And that's where referrals and all those other things start to come about, because how many times have people come to you and said, I trust what you have to say, I know this isn't what you do, but you have a referral or someone in that business.
Indeed.
That's adding value. And that also comes back to always do the right thing. Don't stop just with the delivery of the service and product. Get involved in your customer's business if they allow you to. You get greater success. Processes. Processes should be defined by the goals that they accomplish, the value they provide, and the compliance they ensure. When running a business, I run a business, we have compliance issues. I have to pay my taxes. I have to have liability insurance. I have to manage my people or my contractors. There are certain things that are absolute, or I can't stay in business. We know that. But I have a whole bunch of other processes that I make to make things better in my company. Always reevaluate them. They're the most critical thing to accelerate your business. A repeatable process is gold because it reduces rework. And if there's anything that drives me over the edge, and I'm sure any entrepreneur or business owner, it's rework. As the maturity cycle showed us, as the company matures, repeatable processes and stable processes become inherent in the company. As long as that's your long-term goal, you'll get there. Sales tools. I thought this was a great picture of tools I hadn't seen used in a long time.
Yeah, that really works. I thought today I liked it.
Thank you. The point is, have the right tool for the right job. Don't try to make a screwdriver be a hammer. So if you need a marketing brochure, or if you need a CRM that works for your management team and your sales team, build it that way. Get that tool in place. Arm your people. I once had a British manager, and he said, Geoff, you know, we're the newest guy on the block. We were a small leasing company at the time. It sometimes feel like we're out there with shield and pith helmet fighting a technology war. Because our company was so small, we didn't even have many tools. Everything we did was invented. Every proposal was new. Every presentation was different. And so we're constantly doing the building process of the tools that we need. Once those tools are in place, it increases efficiency, security, and confidence in everyone that uses them. So as a business owner, what's in it for me is I'm going to reduce rework, I'm going to have more people selling or interacting or working as a teamwork, accomplishing goals, and we'll be making more money. So that's the critical goal.
It's one of these things, Geoff, you look at this and say it's so obvious, but isn't it remarkable, as you and I have talked to the small business or even the large business community, how often something as simple as getting the right tools in place is overlooked? They just don't do it. They ignore it and think that it'll go away as a problem, and it doesn't. It just festers and gets worse. So the folks that are out there and the people we work with all need to take heart in the fact and really take notice that you've got to have the right tools as well as the right people, or you're not going to get the optimal result that you so badly desire.
Well, you're not going to arm them for the battle, so to speak, whatever that battle may be. Customers. We all love our customers. We want more of them, other than maybe one or two. And if you have bad customers who cause a disruption and are really bad to work with, fire them.
You know, Geoff, it's funny to hear you say that. When I ran Chicago Investment Analytics, more than one time I fired customers because they treated our salespeople poorly, and I wasn't going to tolerate it. The salespeople are my permanent team. Those customers come and go. So I've never been in a position, and I know when I worked for you, you felt the same. You're not going to let your salespeople go out there and get abused by customers just because they're in that role. And I think managers need to stand up more for their salespeople and realize that not all customers are good customers, and we want to filter down to those truly great customers.
I don't disagree with that. And they can abuse everything in your organization, every resource you have, and literally suck you dry in some ways. It's kind of like the old analogy, if you really discount a deal to a customer, you'll be discounting to that customer forever. If you allow the customer to abuse your people, whether they be salespeople or delivery people or whatever, customer service people, whoever they may be, they'll continue to do that. So that's where I come again back to, it sounds like a repeating mantra, always do the right thing. And those decisions to fire those customers will be a lot easier, especially if you share them that doing the right thing is what you're doing. So most people don't really understand, as I said earlier, being able to sit down with a customer and really understand why they buy from you. Because the better you do that, the better you're going to find their siblings and cousins and all others that fit that profile. Why sell to people who don't have the profile of the people who've already bought from you when you can sell to the people who do, because you know that profile is bought from you before?
You know, Geoff, again, I would just have everybody who's listening or who will see this, these are critical lessons. They sound so simple, but time and time again, I've worked with business people who don't have this idea of knowing your customer down. They don't know how to target their product and therefore optimize the marketing and the sales to match the customer's demands. So I can't stress enough, for folks, you need to take heed of a guy like Geoff, and you need to listen to his wisdom. He spent a lot of decades doing what your salespeople and what your managers are doing. And the value he's bringing to you through these types of insights, again, I always hear, well, that's common sense, but it's only common if you know it. And time again, I know that people don't know the financial end of their business. That's where I come from. Geoff knows that you don't know this kind of thing in general, and I urge you to take it to heart. It's real information and real insight that is invaluable if you implement it.
Somebody's great quote that I like to use is, there are times when you have to work on your business, not in your business. And those 60 hours a week we all put in is generally working in our business, and we don't pop our heads up enough to look across the terrain and say, these are root cause analysis that I need to do in certain places. I need to make sure I'm having my customers. I need to reinforce our culture or whatever that may be.
Indeed.
The customers will tell you everything you ever want to know.
Let's talk about steps to integration, because when the rubber meets the road, it's always, what do I do?
Right. So the first thing that you need to analyze to be able to see whether you're integrated properly or not is, look at your rework to begin with. Look at your sales team. Are they reproducing every proposal every single time? Are they adjusting the PowerPoint slides every single time? Are they using different marketing materials or making them up or doing something else like that? Those are all obviously broken. But those things go on in organization over and over and over, because somebody is not working on the business, they're all working in it. So the integration goes like this. If I understand my customer, I then look and say, am I selling value, am I delivering value, am I constantly reinforcing the value and helping their business grow? If you can't say yes to all of those, then you have a delivery problem and a product or service challenge. And it may be just the way that the customer is using it, or where that you're having them use it, or you can make a slight add-on to change the whole dimension of it. If you can't evaluate it, you'll never know. So the most critical point, as far as I'm concerned, is a real critical analysis. And that analysis is marketing. Is my marketing message what I want it to be? Is it demonstrative of what we can do and the value we drive and the culture we have? And is it talking to the right customer? So what that means is, if I'm doing direct marketing, my target better be absolutely where I want it. Not a general population, an absolute target. If I'm doing mass media,
my product or service is good for everybody.
Okay. But there are customers that you have that have a greater propensity to purchase it from you than others. So in your case, Steve, let's talk about that for a second. Those enlightened customers that do business with you, at the end of the day, why did they tell you they do?
Well, and let's take a look specifics here, folks. Let's talk about what I'm doing today with the Steve Beeman Group, because we have two sets of customers. We have small business people who take the information we have and use that to build their business more efficiently, more profitably for themselves. But there's a second dimension, and those that are aware of the problems that we have in our country today and want to help change the dialogue. They're not often or always the same person. Sometimes they're totally disparate. So we have two target demographics, and within that, it creates a little bit of complexity, but also some opportunity for us. So we've nailed it down on the small business side to the types of people who are most likely to implement the ideas we have. In terms of our sales consulting or our financial consulting or leadership consulting. And those are people who are typically in the, let's say, 1 to 50 employee range. We know they're likely to buy the information of the firm. But when it comes to the message, we know that they're typically the larger privately held companies. So we have two very different sets of customers there.
So I go back to your comment, everybody's a customer. Not everybody is a customer.
Oh, no, I say that with tongue-in-cheek when I say everybody's a customer. I think you and I have seen products when people say, well, everybody should buy this. Well, yes, everybody should, but you've got to work it down to specific, who do I talk to about it? And that is, to your point, a method of focusing in on what best customers are.
It really is. And the better you understand it, this is why I go back to talking to your customers. Talking to your customers gives you everything you're ever going to need to know. You want to find like-minded people. They're most likely to buy from you. So that's why pipelines are so humongous for salespeople. Some people need to be educated along the process. Some people think that they're enlightened and may not be. Some people want to change but won't. And some people understand continuous improvement but can't do it.
Now, Geoff, we're down to our final few minutes, and you've got a slide here that starts out with a statement I think is very interesting. Failure is the final step to success. I know that's going to raise some eyebrows and some curiosity. What exactly do you mean by that?
Every time I do something, if I do it brilliantly, I'm probably going to do it the same way the next time. If I try something and I don't do it brilliantly, it's going to cause a little confusion and chaos in my brain, and I'm going to have to do it a little differently than I presupposed before I started. So in essence, because I didn't do it the way I expected it to be, which would be perfect, I actually hit a failure level. And if you read it in Napoleon Hill, and that's kind of where I found this and made it a quote, is his theory is, which is based on Thomas Edison, is every failure gets me to success. But if I don't have failure, I don't learn, and I'm never really going to get to success.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Very few people just start right out and hit the ball right the first time. Sometimes it takes a little bit of warm-up and a little bit of practice and a few mistakes. Anybody who's ever played golf knows how that works.
That's my whole game. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say to people is the most important thing is take the risk. Change things. Think outside the box. Let people be disruptive on occasion because, as Tom Peters says, no company grows and is innovative without disruptors because they won't get any new ideas. So the whole dynamic is have the passion, the discipline, the focus, and the excitement to grow your business. Let other people be part of that team. Let them interject their thoughts. The more you learn about them, the more you learn that they are the right people doing the right job. You're going to learn more whether your processes are working right. You're going to learn more whether your tools are supporting them, and your successes are going to be that much greater.
You know, Geoff,
that's what I have to say about that.
I caught myself rereading it as you were talking, and I think so many folks need to understand that failure is a natural part of the process. As you say, without it, you're never going to get where you want to go. So we have to recognize that failing is okay, but if we don't learn from it, then it was a wasted effort, and that's the key. You have to learn from your mistakes. And any of us who've ever raised kids knows that that's not always the easiest thing to get people to understand, but they need to learn from mistakes.
Absolutely. The best teacher we have is the failures that we have, in particular our personal ones. Failure is good. We've always said failure is bad.
Let me just say, we're getting down to our final few minutes here, so I want to extend a great thank you from myself and from the members of the Steve Beeman Group and from the fans that we have. As I said, this program has been recorded, so we're going to be providing this. We will work to clean up the audio a little bit so it's a little easier to hear. I think we had a little echo tonight. but we'll work to do that. And if you'd like to get a hold of Geoff, you can reach him at that email that's shown. That's Geoff, Geoff, at decision2buy.com. I welcome you to contact Geoff. We're going to be doing more with him as we build the Steve Beeman Group offering. We thoroughly believe in all that Geoff talks about and what he does. So as we offer here, we'd like to give you a free phone consultation with Geoff. We'd like to make sure you're a little bit patient with that because a lot of folks are going to call him, and we'd like to make sure that he's not overwhelmed. But it's been a great pleasure to have Geoff. Our next month in October, we're going to have a very special guest for you. We're working to kind of lock down a visit by a congressman. So we're excited about that, where we're going to be talking about small business and all that entails from the Washington and what's taking place there. But, Geoff, I want to say thank you again. It's a pleasure to have had you on. I do appreciate your putting together these slides for us and your willingness to work with all of us at the Steve Beeman Group to make business a better place to work. So thank you, Geoff.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our September webinar. We look forward to having you visit us at stevebeemangroup.org. You can email me directly at steve.beeman@stevebeemangroup.org or give us a call at 866-308-3999. We welcome your feedback and your comments, and we look forward to seeing you live at one of our live shows. We have a number of them coming up. Our Sounds of Freedom concert, it looks like, will be happening in Chicago on October 27th. But even before that, we'll be in Peoria, Effingham, and in Bartlett in the next few weeks. So we look forward to having you there. We wish you the best of success. Have a great month. We look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.